When the Simpsons movie came out in 2007, it was both a critical and box office success. I remember I was about 8 years old when I first saw the commercials, and I thought the Simpsons already had a movie, so I thought it was about time they finally got their own movie, even long after its prime in the 90s. And while there's a lot of good things about this film, one of the things I feel like the movie doesn't get enough credit for was for how it redeemed Homer. So I decided why not make a video talking about how Homer went from being a well-meaning doofus to a jerkass into a hero. When Matt Groening was creating The Simpsons, he named Homer after his father, but claimed that despite having the same name, his dad was little to nothing like Homer. He shared about this once in an interview. Homer originated with my goal to both amuse my real father and just to annoy him a little bit. My father was an athletic, creative, intelligent filmmaker and writer, and the only thing he had in common with Homer was a love of donuts. And he never strangled me, but he got so mad sometimes, it felt like it could be the next move.
My father's named Homer, and when you name a buffoonish cartoon character after your own father, you have to make up for it by naming your firstborn son after him as well. So I have a son named Homer too.
He also mentioned in another interview in 2012 that the name also came from a minor character from the novel The Day of the Locust, which also had a character named Homer Simpson. Since Homer was my father's name, and I thought Simpson was a funny name that had the word simp in it, which was short for simpleton, I just went with it. And his middle initial J was a tribute to Bullwinkle J. Moose and Rocket J. Squirrel, and that's how Homer J. Simpson was named.
It's so beautiful.
Now, The Simpsons live in a time where the characters don't really age. When the show first started, Homer was about 34 years old. However, he did get older as the show went on. In season 4, he was 36. Then in season 8, he was about 38 or 39. And in season 18, he was 40. So it was clear that Homer got older as the show went on.
Actually, his age has been kind of set around 39 or 40. He started out, when the show started out, he was about 33 or something like that. But they've kind of frozen him around late 30s.
From the start, Homer and Bart were the two most popular characters, but it was clear that the earlier scenes focused more on Bart, with Homer having more of the side plots. This wasn't always the case, as I read episodes with Homer's storylines, and some that even focused on both of them, but around season 4, Homer became more of the focus. Matt Groening felt that Homer had more potential for jokes and humorous storylines, which is why the show shifted its focus to him. He shared about this once in an interview. With Homer, there's just a wider range of jokes you can do, and there are far more drastic consequences to Homer's stupidity. There's only so far you can go with the juvenile delinquent. We wanted Bart to do up to the point of him being tired and core as an adult, but Homer is an adult, and his boneheadedness is funnier. And honestly, I think that was for the best. As the show went on, you could tell the writers were definitely not a relatable 10-year-old stories for Bart, and started aging up to be more of a teenager in order to give him more varied stories, like having him get a driver's license and trying to pick up older girls, and even Sideshow Bob trying to kill Bart, which I always thought was pretty dark that a 10-year-old already had enemies that wanted to kill him. And I don't know about you, but it's no fun seeing Bart act as a teenager, especially if they don't age him up. You gotta have more of a give and take. Matt Groening probably realized this and was like, yeah, we didn't even have to play field a little. Let's shift more of the focus to Homer and give him the storylines. In the earlier seasons, Homer appeared to be concerned about his family making him look bad. However, in later episodes, he became less anxious about how he was perceived by others. He was dumb but a well-meaning father with good intentions, and had a heart, and was always willing to make his family happy, with 1 or 2 moments of intelligence, which is probably why Marge will stick around with him. But as the show went into its 9th season, during the Mike Scully era, Homer started to become more selfish and arrogant. To put it simply, he became more of a jerk, and he stayed that way for a while. He became what many fans have labeled him as, jerk-ass Homer, which came from a line that Homer yells in the season 9 episode, The Joy of the Sec.
Out of my way, jerk-ass! Out of my way, jerk-ass!
Now, Homer's always been an inconsiderate and anger-prone person, given all the times he strangled Bart, so it's not exactly easy to pinpoint where Homer's jerk-ass behavior began, because he was always kind of a jerk even early on in the series. But the difference with the current version of the character is that while he made mistakes and acted selfish, his attitude was never predominant, and in the end there was always a redemption for his rude and selfish actions, or he'll get the shit beaten out of him. One episode that fans have said that where jerk-ass Homer could have started was in the season 8 episode Homer's Enemy. In this episode, Homer wasn't even close to being a jerk, and acts rather friendly but is perceived to be a lazy and selfish jerk by Frank Grimes, who couldn't win over with Homer's typical oafish charm and likability, to the point where he started to envy Homer, which led Grimes to a mental breakdown that resulted in his death. But I think the point of the ending was how little of an impact Frank made on Homer, and how pretty much Homer learns nothing. But I think his death might have also affected Homer, and convinced him that he should just start acting like the selfish jerk that everyone apparently saw him as.
You're what's wrong with America, Simpson. You coast through life, you do as little as possible, and you leech off decent, hard-working people, like me.
Although Grimes was wrong to call Homer a parasite at the time, the person that Homer became in later seasons fit that description. He no longer started to care for how he was viewed by others. He started to deliberately hurt others, was refusing to be accountable for his actions, and started to lose the heart that made him great in the first place. But most of all, he became mean. There had even been times where Homer's voice actor, Dan Castellaneta, even rejected material written in the script that portrayed Homer as being too mean, as he believed that while Homer may be boorish and unthinking, he'd never be mean on purpose.
Is there anything you don't like about Homer?
There are times where, Homer's got his dark side. He can be very mean. He can be physically. We still are amazed at how long we've gotten people objecting to a lot of things, but we're always amazed that nobody has raised any objection to Homer strangling Bart.
And I think one of the reasons why jerk-ass Homer had become one of the most discussed Simpson topics is because Homer Simpson has done so many unforgivable things. Him having an absent mother and an abusive father doesn't justify anything, and very likely the reason why Bart is a psychopath. He got Maud Flanders killed, desecrated the Bill of Rights, burned down a church, ruined his brother's business, destroyed his father's kidneys and refused to donate his, framed Marge for a DUI, strangles his own son, and got Springfield trapped under a dome. So yeah, up until this point, Homer had become an incredibly awful person and really needed some redeeming. When it came time to do the Simpsons movie in 2007, several scenes were changed to make Homer more sympathetic. The Simpsons movie is about the concept of how much of a jerk Homer had become, and how his selfishness nearly led to Springfield's destruction. Homer not only harms Marge, but the rest of his family and the hotel in Springfield by dumping the pig crap silo into the lake, causing his town to be trapped under the dome. And what makes this movie great in my opinion is how it shows and acknowledges the portrayal of what the results are, and the consequences it can have between the relationship of Homer and his family. Homer's relationship with Bart has always been problematic since early on in the series, and this movie sets a good example of Homer trying to reconcile with his son. Now the good things about Homer and Bart's relationship is they see eye to eye most of the time and share the same sense of humor and bond from time to time. But the issues in the relationship comes that Bart doesn't respect his father and definitely knows how to push his buttons, which causes Homer to lose his temper and strangle Bart, which has become one of the show's running gags. Although it's played for laughs, if Homer were to do this in real life or in a show that, well, wasn't animated, he can go to prison. Though this behavior also comes by the way Homer was treated by his father as a child.
Your whole life you never said one nice thing to me.
That's 'cause you're a screw-up.
You're the screw-up!
You little...
Throughout the movie, Homer is very unsupportive of Bart, not taking full responsibility and constantly neglecting his son. After Homer adopts a pig, he starts to treat it better than his own son, which makes Bart feel replaced. He then turns over to Ned Flanders and begins to look at him as a father figure, after constantly being neglected by Homer. And he even goes as far as calling Homer a bad father, saying that he wishes Flanders was his dad, which honestly is pretty sad to hear.
Flanders helped us when we were in trouble.
Who cares what Flanders did? He's not your father.
I wish he was.
You don't mean that. You worship me.
Oh yeah? Look what I did to your picture.
Even in his final moments when all hope seemed lost, Bart disowns Homer and only asks Flanders to be his dad that cares for him, after saying goodbye to Homer. It's only towards the last act before Homer sees his town that he wants to make things right with his son and spend his last few moments with him by saving the town.
I want a father who's the same in the morning as he is at night. What's that word? Consistency! Thanks, losers. Sorry, Homer.
Now, Homer knows some things about Bart that Ned doesn't, and it's those little things that Bart is willing to let go of everything he dislikes about Homer just so he can hold the bomb.
I'll let you hold the bomb.
The man knows me.
It's silly, but also a nice heartwarming moment, and I just love when these two team up for a father and son mission. And even then, Bart apologizes to Homer for saying he wishes he wasn't his father.
Dad, in case I miss, I'm sorry I said I wish you weren't my father.
I don't blame you, son. I wasn't much of a father. Maybe it starts with the way my dad raised me. Now,
the next arc in the movie is his relationship with his wife Marge. Homer and Marge have a very strong marriage and have survived through cheating, amnesia, and many arguments, but the pair always end up working things out. In fact, while Matt Groening's dad didn't have a problem with Homer being named after him, he did tell Groening one rule that Homer was never allowed to do. The only thing he said was that Homer could never ever be mean to Marge. He said that was a rule which corresponds to the way he treated my mother. He was very nice to her. I thought that was a good note. I don't know if that is a rule that's ever been articulated to people who work on the show, but everybody just gets it.
My father only complained to me once about The Simpsons. He didn't mind anything that they did. He just was upset one time. The Simpsons car was got a flat tire out in the desert, and Homer had Marge carry the flat tire back to town, and while he and the kids waited in the shade. My dad said Homer shouldn't have done that. And I said, come on, Dad, come on, Homer strangles his kids. You've never complained about that.
In the movie, Marge feels like his age or horribly being married to someone who's recklessly as impulsive as Homer. After Homer doesn't listen to Marge and refuses to help Springfield with his family, and even goes back on his own words.
In every marriage, you get one chance to say, I need you to do this with me.
I need you to do this with me.
That is the stupidest thing I've ever heard.
It's come to this point that after 18 years that she stood up for him after everything they've been through, she sadly says goodbye to Homer, leaving him heartbroken. And it's fair to say that Homer gets what he deserves in this movie. The movie was finally where they addressed that he must be accountable for his actions. He has a realization of how his behavior affected his family, and realizes that he must go back to Springfield to clean up his mistake that harmed everyone. He has an epiphany that leads him into a positive growth in his life and confront his shitty ways.
Because other people are just as important as me. Without them, I'm nothing. In order to save myself, I have to save Springfield! That's it! Isn't it?
Even when Homer goes back to Springfield, he doesn't even have a plan and almost loses hope. And while it's easy to say that Homer should have never been forgiven for what he did, the whole town forgives Homer and praises him as a hero for saving Springfield. And Homer didn't have to go back and save the people that betrayed him, but he did anyway, and that made him grow as a person. But more importantly, he reconciled with the people he had issues with before. His own son, his wife. He turned his negative relationship into positive ones through his own emotional growth. He learned to own up to his mistakes and become a better person. And it's at the end where Marge sees that Homer has a change of heart and wins back her forgiveness. And the reason why I think the Simpsons movie is where it ended the jerk-ass Homer arc and redeemed Homer is because after the movie, he became a lot nicer in the later seasons when comparing to the older seasons, and I like that kind of continuity. Now, that's not to say that Homer completely changed after the movie. Probably the worst thing Homer did during the post-movie was in the season 19 episode, Papa Don't Lynch, where he enjoys a realistic dream fantasy where he kills his father, which has been considered to be the least funny thing that Homer ever did on the show. And even though it's just a dream sequence, it's still probably the darkest thing that I've seen on the show. He still acted thoughtless and was still a jerk to Flanders, still strangled Bart, and still had the occasional marriage problems with Marge. But he slowly started to soften up and gain a sense of shame back, along with his laziness. And while he still made mistakes, he started to become more vulnerable and get closer with his kids. And there would even be some episodes that punished Homer for his bad behavior, maybe a little too far.
I didn't know you were left-handed.
And now, many people say that Homer is too edgeless and nice now. That Homer has gone from jerk-ass Homer to badass Homer, or nice-ass Homer, whatever people want to call him these days. With some critics even saying that some of his development is almost un-Homer-like. That he has the capacity to understand that Marge has all the real solutions, and still finds a way to go a step further. He acts more supportive of Marge, and is really warm and cuddly to her, and even acts more generous to Flanders, and also more surprisingly, hasn't even strangled Bart since season 31.
Are you little? You know, boy, not sure I can strangle you anymore. I'm gonna try something new. What do you say, boy?
And it's just really nice seeing Homer trying to be a nice guy. Even if he fucks up, he still tries his best. And that's what I always loved about The Simpsons, that it's always able to tell incredible stories and take interest to develop its characters.
But why?
Because jerk-ass Homer has become ass-jerk Homer.
Well, that curled my lashes, but good for you.
You're all right, stupid Flanders.
See, Homer is not a bad person, but people often take advantage of his stupidity and ignorance to humiliate him and make him look bad, especially Bart. He often takes advantage of his father and makes a fool of him, and that's when Homer loses his temper with Bart and makes himself look bad. Now, Homer isn't perfect, but above all, Homer tries to be good. He is capable of great love when it comes down to a very serious situation. He always does the right thing for his kids, and he is never unfaithful in spite of several opportunities. And I think this is why, for all of Homer's stupidity, bigotry, and self-centered quality, we can't hate him. While he continually fails at being a good father, he never gives up trying, and in a weird and important way, that makes him a good father. And I think that's what makes Homer such a likable character. And despite all the unforgivable things that he's done, like Matt Groening once said, if Marge can forgive Homer, then so can we.